The funeral flowers for my grandmother weren't even dry when my mother handed me a trash bag and said, "You have 24 hours to move out." For 28 years, I was the ghost in my own family, the invisible daughter living in the shadow of my golden boy brother, David. They thought leaving me penniless would break me. What they didn't know is that while they were busy spending David's failed business loans, I was quietly building an international tech consultancy for my phone. 3 years later, my parents showed up at the gates of a gated oceanfront community in Malibu, demanding to see the owner of a $1.2 million villa. When the security guard called my name, my mother's face went completely white. But their surprise turned into pure greed until they realized the trap they were walking into. Follow my story to the end and comment your city below. My name is Chloe, and at 28 years old, I finally learned what it feels like to exist. Growing up, I wasn't just second best, I was completely invisible. My parents revolved entirely around my younger brother, David. Every dinner table conversation was about his future, every spare dollar went toward his hobbies, and every mistake he made was swept under the rug. I was just the background noise in my own home, expected to keep quiet and stay out of the way. The ultimate betrayal happened on the coldest Tuesday of November. The funeral flowers for my grandmother weren't even dry when my mother walked into my room, handed me a heavy-duty black trash bag, and said without an ounce of remorse, "You have 24 hours to pack your things. David needs a dedicated home gym, and this room has the best lighting." I looked at my father, waiting for him to step in, to say something, anything. He just crossed his arms and looked at the floor. 28 years of trying to earn their love, and I was being thrown out like garbage so my golden boy brother could lift weights. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply packed my life into that trash bag, loaded it into the back of my beat-up sedan, and drove away with $50 in my bank account, a laptop, and a quiet resolve that would change everything. Those first 6 months were pure survival. I rented a cramped, windowless studio apartment that smelled like damp carpet, where the radiator hissed through the night. My dinner was usually instant noodles eaten straight from the pot while staring at my laptop screen. But I wasn't just working, I was waging a quiet war for my independence. Utilizing my background in digital strategy, I began pitching global tech firms as an independent corporate consultant. I worked brutal 80-hour weeks, taking client calls at 3 in the morning and coding custom solutions through bloodshot eyes. While my college peers were out socializing on weekends, I was obsessively perfecting every client deliverable, building a reputation for absolute reliability. Meanwhile, my phone would occasionally buzz with texts from my parents. There were no messages asking how I was eating or if I had a roof over my head. It was always my mother demanding money for David's latest failed startup, or asking me to co-sign a loan for his new luxury car because family supports family. I never replied. I just kept my head down and kept building. Then came the turning point. 14 months after moving out, I landed my first Fortune 500 client, a massive 3-year contract that transformed my modest agency into a multi-million-dollar operation almost overnight. The money hit my account, but I didn't buy flashy clothes or post about it online. I stayed entirely under the radar. To my family, I was still the broke, desperate daughter who had vanished into the shadows. They had no idea that while they were busy pampering David and burning through their savings, the invisible girl had quietly built an empire. By my 3rd year on my own, my business was generating more revenue than I'd ever imagined possible. It was time to build a real anchor, a place that was entirely mine, where no one could ever make me feel small again. I found a stunning $1.2 million coastal villa tucked inside an exclusive gated community in Malibu. With floor-to-ceiling glass windows, a private courtyard, and the sound of crashing ocean waves right outside my bedroom, it felt like entering a completely different world. I paid for the down payment and secured the mortgage effortlessly, putting every single document under my name alone. For 8 glorious months, life was peaceful. I woke up to coffee on my oceanfront terrace, hosted dinners for close friends who actually valued me, and watched my agency thrive. I hadn't spoken to my parents in over 2 years, and the silence was therapeutic. I was finally healing. Then, reality collided with my past in the most unexpected way. It happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon at a high-end organic grocery store near the coast. As I was loading fresh fruit into my cart, I bumped right into Aunt Clara, my mother's younger sister, and the biggest gossip in our entire extended family. Her eyes widened in utter disbelief as she took in my tailored silk blazer, designer handbag, and the keys to my new car resting in my hand. I kept the conversation brief, polite, and vague, simply telling her I was doing well and lived nearby before making a quick exit. But as I drove back toward the gates of my villa, a cold knot formed in my stomach. I knew Aunt Clara's immediate next phone call would be to my mother, and the illusion of my invisible life was about to shatter completely. 2 days after seeing Aunt Clara, the storm arrived. I was sitting on my patio enjoying my morning tea when my phone rang from an unlisted number. It was my mother, her voice trembling not with affection, but with sharp, breathless fury. "Chloe, where did you get the money for a house in Malibu? Are you involved in something illegal?" Before I could even answer, she hung up. An hour later, my front gate security called my private line. "Miss Chloe, there are 3 people at the main gate demanding entry. They claim to be your family and are refusing to leave." My heart pounded, but I told security to let them through. I wanted to look them in the eyes. A sleek white SUV pulled up my driveway, and out stepped my parents along with David. My mother's eyes darted frantically around the estate, taking in the manicured gardens, the infinity pool, and the stunning ocean view. But instead of relief or joy that her daughter was thriving, her face twisted into bitter outrage. "How could you?" she screamed, marching right up to my glass front door. "You've been living like royalty while your brother is struggling to pay rent on a 2-bedroom apartment." David stood behind her, arms crossed, sizing up the property with cold calculation. "Mom's right, Chloe. You clearly used family connections or money you stole from Dad's old investments to buy this place. It's completely unfair." "I built everything myself," I said, my voice ice cold. "You threw me out with $50. You don't get to claim a single brick of this house." My father stepped forward, his eyes burning with entitlement. "You are our daughter, Chloe. You're going to put David's name on this deed today, or we will make sure everyone knows what kind of selfish monster you really are." When I ordered my estate security team to escort them off the property, my mother shrieked that I would regret it. I thought that would be the end of their desperate outburst, but I severely underestimated how far their greed would drive them. 3 days later, a process server knocked on my door. I had been served with a formal lawsuit filed in county court. My parents had hired a sleazy, high-volume trial attorney known for aggressive shakedowns. The complaint was a masterpiece of fiction. They claimed that during my time living under their roof, I had access to family investment funds and proprietary business strategies that I supposedly stole to launch my consultancy. On top of that, they filed a motion for an emergency injunction, trying to freeze my property title and force a temporary settlement that would grant David co-ownership of the villa. Attached to the legal summons was a private handwritten letter from my mother. It read, "Sign over 50% of the house to David and agree to a monthly allowance for us, or we go to the press. We will tell every local newspaper and business blog that you robbed your own elderly parents to buy luxury real estate." It was a total smear campaign designed to destroy my corporate reputation and scare my high-profile clients away. They assumed I would panic. They thought the quiet, invisible girl who used to cry in her bedroom would bend under the pressure of public shame and run to hand over the keys just to make the nightmare go away. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't that scared girl anymore. I immediately called the top corporate defense firm in California. It was time to stop playing defense and start playing to win. My legal team, led by a ruthless senior partner named Marcus, didn't just review the lawsuit. They dismantled it piece by piece. Within 48 hours, our forensic accountants audited every single dollar I had ever earned. Every transaction, every client invoice, and every mortgage payment was linked directly to my verified business accounts. There wasn't a penny of family money in my life. But Marcus didn't stop there. While pulling my complete financial history, his investigators uncovered something shocking buried in my older credit reports. 6 years ago, while I was still living at home, My parents had stolen my social security number to take out two high-interest personal loans totaling $45,000 to fund David's college tuition and lifestyle. They had quietly defaulted on them, leaving my name attached to a legal debt without my knowledge. It was slam-dunk evidence of criminal identity theft, bank fraud, and elder-on-child financial abuse. Instead of filing a countersuit immediately, I set a trap. I instructed Marcus to invite my parents, David, and their sleazy attorney to a formal settlement conference at my law firm's high-rise downtown office. We let them believe I was terrified of the public smear campaign and ready to negotiate signing over the property. On the day of the meeting, my family walked into the glass conference room smirking with total triumph. My mother even brought a bottle of champagne in her bag to celebrate taking my home. They sat down at the heavy oak table, and their lawyer slid a deed transfer document across to me with a smug smile. "Sign here, Chloe, and this all goes away." I didn't pick up the pen. Instead, Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out two thick, red folders. "What are those?" their attorney asked, his smug smile faltering as Marcus slid the red folders across the table. "The first folder contains an immaculate, independent audit proving my client's villa was bought entirely with her own earnings," Marcus said, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "The second folder contains bank records proving Mr. and Mrs. Vance committed felony bank fraud and identity theft by forging Chloe's signature on $45,000 worth of fraudulent loans." The room went dead silent. My mother's face drained of all color, and the bottle of champagne clinked loudly against her handbag as her hands began to shake. David stared at the documents in total horror. "Here are your options," I said, leaning forward and looking my parents dead in the eye. "You drop this absurd lawsuit right now, sign a legally binding non-disclosure agreement, and permanently forfeit any right to contact me again. Or my lawyer files these fraud reports with the district attorney before 5 o'clock today. You won't just lose the house, Mom. You and Dad will be going to prison." Their attorney looked at the evidence, turned to my parents, and whispered, "Sign the withdrawal."
"Now."
With trembling hands, my mother signed the paper, realizing their greed had destroyed everything. They walked out of that skyscraper humiliated, defeated, and completely out of options. Sitting on my Malibu terrace that evening, watching the golden sunset over the Pacific Ocean, I finally felt at peace. I was no longer invisible. I was free.